Hello, welcome to We Talk Sport. And boy, do we have some fun stuff for you guys today. We will be talking about the proposed breakaway European Super League which was announced yesterday. Oh boy, there's going to be some fun stuff going on there. You just know there is. So, what we'll do is I will start. We'll go with some information I have, and obviously, let you guys know from there. I will give my opinion at the end about this, but just going to go into details for people who obviously don't know what's going on with this. Okay. Basically, yesterday, as I speak, which would have been the 18th of April, an announcement was made that 12 of Europe's richest clubs plan to form their own Super League. Now, this is interesting because obviously when this announcement happened, it's literally a day before, obviously the 19th today, where UEFA, which is the European Football Federation, would plan to announce an expansion to the existing Champions League format. I do apologise if you can hear that. That's people having work done nearby. I cannot help that. I do apologise. Where they're going to revamp include expanding the Champions League to 36 teams. So, yeah, that would come into effect from 2024, if that goes ahead. So, by consequence, the Super League involves teams from England, Italy, and Spain. Okay? And one of the proposed reasons this has come into effect is these 12 clubs from these three countries have had issues with UEFA's financial rewards from the Champions League, basically sponsorship and media incomes. So make of that what you will. The clubs involved are Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham from England. From Spain, you have Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atletico Madrid. And from Italy, you have AC Milan, Inter Milan, and Juventus. So more teams will be announced later for this, apparently, because they want to have a certain amount of teams involved. I think it's 20 in total, from what I remember. One of the things about this is a case of obviously you guys would have noticed, before I get to the photo bit, that there's no French or German teams. Now, not sure why the French teams are involved. That's down to them, basically. The German teams, this pretty much seems to be the wide prevailing theory. I mean, you guys may know different by this point, I don't know. Where German clubs, for those who do not know this, are 51% of German clubs, because you have shares and stuff in football clubs. 51% of ownership in German football clubs is owned by the fans. So basically, no media companies or financial companies or anything like that can own a majority stake in a club in Germany. It's because 51% will always belong to the fans, because that's just how it works there. So, yeah. So there is that. Right. I will go into details about what is proposed. So it's 20 teams in total, but it's selective and closed. So essentially, it's 12 of Europe's richest clubs, and plus, to put it in a way which will help make sense for a wider audience, they then get to pick the teams they want to join them. Okay. This event would take place midweek, so essentially it'd be targeting replacing the Champions League, or competing with it, which is how it seems to be going at the moment, because of the way it's been reacted to. Pretty much every football governing body, in one fashion or another, if it's FIFA, UEFA, or the FA, they are not happy about this, and they're all throwing hissy fits. And whether they're right or wrong to do so, it's subjective. However, I do find it interesting, because none of these federations are involved in the Super League. I think it's a case of they're all worried about not making any money off of this. So for them, I think it's purely financial as to why they're upset, those governing bodies. I mean, to be fair, it's probably why a lot of these clubs want to do is breakaways to earn more money. So it's not like those clubs are particularly clean in that scenario either. It's one of those. So let's see. Yes, apparently there's a lot of former players who aren't happy with this announcement as well. And I would like to remind a lot of these former players, the reaction to this was similar to what the Premier League was given a reaction to originally when it first came into being. A lot of people are not happy about the Premier League, and this includes fans, by the way, because a lot of fans aren't happy about this either. But initially, the Premier League was not viewed upon very favourably. It was all like, "Oh, you're going to ruin the football. It's the Premier League, and it's the first division should be the be-all and end-all." And you know what? We've had the Premier League now since 1992. And it's turned out to be a very good thing, at least for English football. So that's a possible argument for the Super League. I'm not saying it should go ahead, but it's just an example of how an alteration like this has worked. But of course, this is slightly different because this involves clubs from other countries as well. Okay. Yes, a lot of the fans, particularly on social media, have voiced their opinions about not being happy with this. So, again, if you're a fan and you follow your club, you are entitled to your opinion. Absolutely, you are. As long as you're not a douche or menacing, I think you're fine. Express your opinions. You have a right to do so as a fan. Just don't be an arse. The other thing I think will be very interesting about this is if this does go ahead, who will broadcast it? Because a lot of these top leagues are tied up to broadcasters to distribute them. For example, here in the United Kingdom, which is where I am, the Premier League is shown on both Sky and BT Sports here, with occasional matches shown on Amazon Prime. Now, that brings up an interesting question, because a lot of the people involved in this Super League are American, and we'll get to that in a minute. So does that mean we could have a possibility of it being one of Sky, BT, Amazon? But of course, I think you also, with having so much American involvement, you risk having other companies come into the foray as well who wouldn't necessarily you'd originally think of. You have Netflix as a possibility. I mean, there's Disney. I mean, and people may think that's a strange one. It's not when I explain to you that Disney owns ESPN, which is an American sports station, for those of you who do not know. And that's a possibility as well. Because it could end up being a case of these matches aren't even shown in this country. They might just be shown elsewhere. They might only be shown in America, for example. There's no way to know. And a lot of the European countries may not show them either. It's a hard thing to know. It depends on who gets these rights. But that's an important thing when you're going to try and generate money from a product like this. Sponsorships and broadcasters are a big deal. So it could put a lot of people off the backlash this has got so far as to not want to be involved. But by the same token, it may encourage someone to think, well, I've never wanted to do this before, but we've got so many of these big clubs involved, it could end up making us a lot of money. So it's definitely one of those. But, I mean, you guys can let me know what you think as far as who would broadcast it. And of course, now I think about it, particularly in England, you always have the possibility of the terrestrial channels, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5. But again, I'm not sure how they'd do us being able to pay for the rights. That would be the only issue for those channels, particularly the BBC, because the BBC is in a bit of financial trouble at the moment. So that could be an issue. It has been made fairly clear by all the full organisations, federations and governing bodies involved. There's a possibility that the teams could face punishments if they take place in this top part in the Super League by not being allowed to participate in their home leagues or their home cup competitions as a result. So, because this is how much this seems to be bothering these governing bodies. Okay. UEFA have to come out and said apparently a lot of these players will end up not being allowed to play for their national teams, including playing in World Cups and European Championships and stuff like that. Well, again, this makes perfect sense as well. But there you go. Now I'll get a bit more to the more widespread implications of this. We have had the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson come out and say, "Oh, we can't do this. Got to get this back to the people, right?" Okay, here's the thing about this. Okay, he may be the Prime Minister, but he doesn't know anything about this stuff. Why is he getting involved? Why is he getting involved with this stuff? I don't understand if it's a sports minister, because the sports minister's job is to be involved in sport. Okay, that's part of the reason they're there. The sports minister would have, I think, every right to comment on this situation, but I've not heard anything from the sports minister. That may have changed, I don't know. But the Prime Minister has come out and made this comment, and it's like, so where's your information and your proof about what's going on here? So making statements as a politician is a very bad thing if you can't back it up or at least show where you got your information from. It can be quite an issue. So yeah, I've never been a big fan of politicians being involved in sport, because sport should just be sport. So yes, I know inside the games and the organisations themselves there's a degree of politics, absolutely, but I mean, as in like people who run the countries, that kind of politics, that should never be anywhere near sport, in my opinion. The entire Super League apparently is going to be underlined and underwritten, I should say, that's the correct, underwritten, financial-wise, by the investment bank JP Morgan, which is an American investment bank. They're a big deal. They existed in the city here in the United Kingdom. I've been past the building where they are many times, and they are a big deal. Got a lot of money, so there's no problems with underwriting anything, so that's never been an issue for them. The proposed leagues in question, proposed Super League in question, already has a chairman announced, which is the Real Madrid chairman, Florentino Perez. And to be perfectly blunt, that to me is a bad thing. Never liked the guy. He comes off as essentially a second-hand car salesman. He's as dodgy as bugger for me. Not a fan, but that's just me personally. It's just how he comes across to me. Whether he's like that or not, I don't actually know, but it's not a good thing if the first thing you look at when the person who's supposed to represent your brand makes me think, yeah, but could I buy a car from you? That's not a good thing. So, the vice chairman of this Super League is Joel Glazer, and that's been one of the Glazers who own Manchester United, and an American. So this is where the American stuff keeps coming. There's a lot of Americans involved. Apparently, JP Henry and Stan Kroenke, who are two American owners of Arsenal and Liverpool respectively, may end up also being added as vice chairman. So again, two more Americans. So you see where this is going? It seems like this is very much an American idea of let's have the best teams all play each other, like the World Series in baseball, which is only win by American teams. I mean, this is slightly different because obviously you would have English teams, Spanish teams, and Italian teams. But you wouldn't have, you don't have German teams or French teams, and both countries which have some pretty big teams who should be involved in something like this if you're going to have this legitimately. So that to me is definitely an issue. So there you go. Bit more on the financial things. Apparently, the clubs involved, the mainstay clubs, will get $3 billion a year in payments for this competition. So again, this re-emphasizes the money. That's £3 billion, by the way, in pounds sterling, as in UK money. In euros, it's like $3.5 billion. So not sure what that is in dollars, but you can probably double it, and that'll probably get you to dollars, because that's usually how the exchange rate works. So basically, if you double the $3 billion in dollars, it's probably about $5.5 billion would be my estimation without actually working it out. That's just off the top of my head. So the format of the supposed league, if it goes ahead, will be midweek games. There's 2 groups of 10 who will compete. The top 3 teams in each group qualify directly for the quarterfinal stages of this tournament. 4th and 5th place teams will play each other in a playoff to decide who the final 2 teams to join those quarterfinals, and then obviously you'll have quarterfinals and semi-finals will be played over 2 legs, basically like the Champions League stuff is now, essentially. Which ultimately will culminate in a final, which will take place at a neutral venue. Now, with this stuff, I'm not actually surprised by the format of this. It's not the worst idea for format. It's actually pretty good. But the backlash it's received from a lot of quarters fans, former players, and the government are like, means this could end up being very difficult for these clubs to do. Don't get me wrong, the fact they've got someone like JP Morgan underwriting this probably makes it much easier for them to go ahead if necessary. But I think their big stumbling block could be finding a broadcaster who will actually cover these games, because that's, again, a big influx of revenue to get and sponsors. This could be an issue for these teams going forward, especially if they end up losing the ability to participate in their home things like La Liga and Serie A and the Premiership. Because if you can't play in your home leagues, then obviously you lose that income as well, and obviously the Champions League and UEFA competitions as well. So they solely have to rely upon this competition, which, if you can't get sponsors and broadcasters, I'm assuming financial wise, that's going to be rather difficult to earn money, essentially, because obviously that's something all these clubs are going to want to do, is earn money. Now, as far as what I think about this league thing going forward, I think it probably isn't the worst idea. I like the idea of it. I prefer the idea format-wise to the Champions League, because the Champions League I don't like. People know this about me. I don't like the league format. I think it's boring. It's too many games. It's what it actually is. And it's a case of, if you're going to have the champions of Europe involved in the league thing, have it be the champions. Because this was the big issue I have with it. To qualify for the Champions League, for example, you can finish 4th or 5th place in your home league and still qualify for the Champions League. Why are you being able to play in a Champions League if you're not a champion? It makes no sense to me. Surely it should be the top team from each league that gets to play in it. You can still have the same amount of numbers, and then you also have the top teams, but then you also have the possibility of fairy tale stories coming true, where you get teams who come out of nowhere, or smaller teams progressing really well. I mean, for an example, in 1992, when it was still the European Cup, you had Red Star Belgrade, who pretty much came up from nowhere and won the damn thing, beating Marseille in the final, when Marseille at the time were a big deal. So there is that. I mean, yes, the Super League means that things is less likely to happen, but the Champions League doesn't really help itself either by diluting itself so much. So the only thing this league I think particularly has in favour itself is if you're trying to show like the prestige creme de la creme of your European talent, these are the kind of teams you'd have, in all honesty. Do I think you have to like it? No. But from a pure format point of view, I think the European Super League is probably a very good way of doing it. But I think they will struggle to get it off the ground. But we'll see if I'm right, ultimately. Because you never know what will happen with such things. Because the world of sport is weird, let's be honest. So, particularly when it comes to football, or a few Americans out there, soccer. So seriously, Americans, you must learn to call this football. It's not soccer, right? But with that, I think we've managed to cover most of it. But my opinion is, I don't have a problem with it going forward. I really don't. Because one way or the other, a lot of these clubs are in this to make money. So whether they make money for their home leagues or make money for themselves in the Super League, I don't see the issue in that regard. Because if that's their motivation, fine. It's one of those things. But these clubs, by going forward with this, have to bear in mind there's a very strong possibility they are going to lose out on having, fans turn up for their games, basically. Because if the fans really are that bothered by this, they risk having empty stadiums for these games. I mean, yes, during COVID times, of course, the stadiums are empty. But when you can have fans back, because fans do add to the atmosphere of a game, no question. But with things are going at the moment, with empty stadiums, it wouldn't be so much of an issue. But when you're supposed to have fans back, so when you have all these other games taking place in all these other leagues, and there's fans and stuff, and then you go to these Super League games, and if there's no one in a stadium when you can have people in, it's going to really look odd, and it's going to affect it, I think. So, but we'll see what happens anyway. You guys let me know what your opinions are of this, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, and we'll go from there. Simple as that. And with that, people, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of We Talk Sport. The next show we have for this, we will talk about more other sports in general. I figured this because this is quite a big story and a big deal. I figured it was worth talking about this particularly. So, and I don't like making these shows too long either. So this is just supposed to be digestible. And with that, people, you can that soon. I will just quickly plug. We have a Patreon here. You guys can check out to help support the channel and all the other stuff here. So check it out. The links are in the description below. Our social medias are here as well. So we have our Twitter and we have our Instagram. And with these, if you want to particularly draw your attention for this show, it's hashtag WeTalkSport, and it'll enable me to find what you want to get involved with. Also, you can always comment here as well. Our patrons can also contact us directly, which makes it much easier as well. And with that, people, we will see you soon. So, bye-bye.